Greetings, beloved Star Child Rising. You are in Christina's Corner, and I am Christina. Welcome back to the podcast where I have the opportunity and the honor to highlight and celebrate individuals who are out here leveraging their gifts and their talents to uplift the world. Today's topic in this interview is kindness. And we are honored to have with us someone whose heart and spirit has touched countless lives, Libby Pace. Libby's journey is a testament to the power of kindness, dedication, and genuine human connection. From her transformative 25 years as the Dean of Residential Life at a small boarding school for girls, where she was a cornerstone of support and guidance, to her current role as a compassionate caretaker for seniors, Libby's life is a story of unwavering service. She's a force of nature, blending warmth and humor with a no nonsense approach. Libby used to always say, Homie, don't play it. Remember that, Libby?
Yes, I do.
Libby ensures everyone feels safe, seen, and valued. Libby's ability to create a home away from home for students from around the world and her deep commitment to caring for the elderly are a reflection of her extraordinary capacity for empathy. Please join me in welcoming my friend, the remarkable Libby Pace.
Oh,
Welcome, Libby.
thank you, Christine, for having me and that beautiful intro. Thank you so much.
Well, you're a beautiful human being. You are that you
Oh,
are. So, Libby, in the podcast, I always ask six questions. I'm going to try to keep it to six, although I might double up in some places to get more out of you.
okay.
Um, but the first one, Libby, is always to ask you to take us back to your childhood. What were you like as a child? And did you get any signs that you would be in service as you were growing up? And how did you enter into education?
Well, we always joke that as I exited the womb, I think I went to work the moment that I said, "Hello, world." Um, I grew up on a farm, and from the time I could toddle around, I was either in a garden or I was out in the yard with my dad. And both my parents had really strong work ethics. So, growing up on a farm and then just their example of they each held down a full time job, plus had gardens, raised what they ate, um, meats, and what have you. So I think I was born into service, but maybe not the service, the type of service at that time that we're talking about right now.
And how did you get into education?
Um, I was looking for a school for my daughter, and because she was at a school that stopped in the eighth grade. And I happened to visit this school. And when I walked in the door, I fell in love with it. And I knew that's where I wanted my daughter to go to school. Um, and she was there for a couple years. And then I went through a divorce. And, I needed a job because I worked with my husband. So I was looking around and just knew several people at the school, and they said, "We have an opening for a receptionist if you're interested in doing that kind of work." And I said, "Sure." And the rest is history. The moment I went to work for that school, that changed my life in every which way.
That's amazing because you helped change so many lives during
Oh,
your time there. That's so glad you made that choice. Okay, thank you for that. Number two. So, Libby, I've said this to you often, but kindness is a word that immediately comes to mind when I think of you. You may not remember this, but I remember actually getting you a as a souvenir from one of the school trips that I took of Mother Teresa. Do you remember that?
I
Because I
absolutely do.
always,
I still have it.
you do?
Yes, I do.
Oh, yeah. So I know, Miss Libby was a force to be reckoned with. Um, and you, in so many ways, reminded me of Mother Teresa in your care and
Wow.
your nurturing and your cultivating relationships and your advocacy for the students.
Oh,
Was basic, was through and through student centered, and I love that about you. So I had the honor of working with you and living on campus with you. At some point, I was right next door to you for 11 years.
yes.
So I know about your kindness and compassion firsthand, that I do. What does kindness mean to you, and how have you witnessed its healing power throughout your life and career?
Well, just from us working together, that I felt we should have a culture of kindness, without trying to be, you know, like it's not always sunshine and roses, but you want there to be a certain amount of kindness that is expected. And a lot of times in dealing with folks, there's different definitions of kindness, but for me, my definition is as doing things for them. Like there, for a long time there was this thing, book or something, Random Acts of Kindness, and that resonated with me because there's no better way to show someone how much you care about them and want to help them than being kind to them. A kindness will open a door when words just won't. Something as simple as telling someone, asking them if they want a cup of coffee, or just to sit down and having lend an ear. So for me, kindness is something that's hard to define in words, but I think actions, to show that you care about people.
That is so true and very profound. And as you were talking, Libby, I was thinking about one of the first huge projects that I had at that school was I always was filled with big ideas, but not fully aware of all the details that went into some of these big ideas. And I remember saying, we're going to take an overnight camping trip. You remember that?
I
Um,
do. I do.
and I had
That was a
no
big
idea
idea.
it was. And I just knew it was going to happen. And because you cared for me, it was, I was pretty new there. And because you cared for me, you had made, you and Tiffany
Yep,
made the decision that you were not going to allow me to fail. And so I
that's
kept
right.
seeing you running back and forth, sneaking around campus, and it's like, what are they doing? Like truckloads of stuff, but you were taking care of all the details that needed to happen in order for this trip, this overnight camping trip to go through. And it was a beautiful experience. And so much was dedicated to the work that you and Tiffany did behind the scenes. That sticks with me for a lifetime. So when we talk about kindness, you could have sat back and just let me fail, and I'd have been like, what happened?
No. Well, I
But you
tell
made
you, I loved you to death from the moment that you interviewed. And then you had that precious little girl with you, and Tiffany and I, my partner in crime, at my best friend
Mhm.
at school, well, in life, she was really good at not letting me fail. So your project was so worthwhile. And we all came away, teachers, students, staff, whomever was in attendance. Um, they walked away with a lot that they didn't have before they went. Living in a dorm with a bunch of students and being a dorm parent and trying to figure out a way to get everybody to feel comfortable. As at the beginning of school, somebody was homesick in one of those
Mm-hmm.
cabins. So,
Mm-hmm.
as a matter of fact, that's where um, my one of my advisees, Angel Fluff. Remember Angel
Mm-hmm.
Fluff?
Mm-hmm.
Jessica. Our relationship as advisor and advisee started that night because she was homesick.
Yeah.
And, working with her and her family, I wouldn't have missed that for anything. But I love that. I love that you remembered that and you reminded me of it because we did so much that sometimes you just forget, you know, and I would have hated to forget that.
And, me being a student-driven person too, I was going with the students. This is what they wanted. I would never in a million years want to camp out, you know, out and doing a camp. But this is what they wanted to do, so I got excited for them.
Yeah.
And I also remember, like at the end of the night, I was like, Libby, I can't sleep in that cabin. Just you didn't even hesitate. You just knowingly nodded your head and said, Christine, we know. Go on home. We got this.
You know what? I don't want to get ahead of anything, but it reminds me of when you came up with the theme joy, finding joy in your journey. And the
Yeah.
one thing about it is through my journey for that whole entire time working with students, yes, there was sadness. That's just life. But the joy from that trip and from other trips and being able to work with students and let them know, you know, in that work, a lot of times a kindness will open up a door between a teacher and a student or an advisor and a student. A random act of kindness or an act of kindness can open a door for a student who's having a difficult time. And so, like that trip, that camping trip, it opened a door to students' minds that let them see a different Miss Gilmore than they were going to see in the classroom in the
True.
math room. Still just as great, but they were going to see you not want to sleep in a tent or a cabin. And that makes you human to them.
Thank you for that. And the the memories that the students themselves, made during the time, whether they were crying about it or laughing about it,
Mm-hmm.
it was truly a bonding experience in so many different ways.
It
Um,
was.
so thank you for that. All right. So number three, Libby, over your 25 years at the boarding school, you were a constant source of support for young students from all over the world. Can you share some of the most rewarding and challenging aspects of creating a home away from home for them? Were there any
Well,
watershed moments that have impacted your perspective?
well, I'll tell you, anytime a student comes from another country or even another state, and sometimes it's the first time they've been away from home, and you stop and think about everything is new to them, especially if they're coming from another country. The foods, the time, the time frame is huge. Activities, and sometimes there's a language barrier. And so the way I always approached that type work was if I were sending my daughter somewhere, what would I want for her? You know, what would I want for her? And I would want someone to meet her, make her feel as safe and comfortable as they could, knowing that she was scared, to death, and homesick. And then I would hope that person would just open their heart and know that um, she's young, she's scared, and to try to just treat her like she was my child, comfort her as much as I could, whether that means after classes taking her somewhere for a quick ice cream or running to Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts, something that just has something to get her mind off of being homesick. And then usually what would happen is we would figure out a way to try to say, invite someone, or we would invite someone. And there were just so many things like that, that if you can get the socialization piece taken care of, 98% of the time, the rest of it takes care of itself. Um, and so that was just always my philosophy. Treat them like they're yours, love them. A lot of people say, well, you're not going to love a child the moment you see her. Well, I hope if you don't love them that you have some form of compassion, um, because over the time that they're at school, um, you live with these kids, you eat with these kids. You're there when things go well, you're there when things go badly, you're there when they lose a family member, or they have to miss an event because they're at school. And and I think there has to be, first and foremost, there has to be a level of compassion and sincerity and love for them. And I think the biggest moments for me are when you take two children from opposite ends of the world, and those two form a friendship. Or maybe it's not even opposite ends of the world. Maybe you've got a student from, you know, Alabama, and you've got one up here in Maryland, and they don't know each other, so they have to learn how to get along. When you see, because they live together, or they're in classes together, or they're on the sports field together, when you see that uh, take shape, and you see their relationship, their friendship open up, and that's when you see one of them showing kindness to the other. Maybe one struggles, and one can make them feel, they're struggling with homesick, and the other one tries to help them. When you see that take place, everything that you've done work wise, that's what it's all about. You know, you're not there to take the hardship on for them. You're there to help them navigate it. And doing that is the best part of working with students. Seeing them
Yeah.
take hold of that knowledge, or making a tough decision on their own, or just anything like that. Those are the watershed moments, you know.
Mhm. Yeah. And especially with a boarding school, as you said, you wake them up in the morning and
Mhm.
you put them to bed at night. And so it's so rewarding to see when they come in as freshmen
Yeah,
and, overcome all the obstacles that navigate all of the obstacles to be able to graduate, and they become like family
yeah,
and for for a lifetime, because I know you still keep in touch with,
I
you
do.
know, from your
Yep,
first years at the school,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
I do. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. Um, that has brought me more joy than I can even describe. Um, one of the students recently finished her PhD, and the other one is about to finish, or another one is about to finish. Or on Mother's Day, I get a text saying, "Thank you for everything I've done. You did for me. I love you, Miss
Mhm.
Libby." You
Wow.
want to talk about blubbering like a baby? Oh my God. I mean, that brings some big tears to your eyes. And I wouldn't change that for anything, because I don't want it to magnify me. Is the fact that whatever I did, whatever kindness I showed to them, you know, that it resonated with them, that they really knew I meant it, that I meant every kindness, every moment of compassion. They felt that it was genuine because
Mhm.
kids know when you're not, students know, children know, no matter what, they know when you're
Yep,
genuine and when you're not.
yep. And they will call you up on it as
Yes,
well.
they
Yep.
will.
I
Yes,
love
they
that
will.
phrase. Okay, thank you for sharing. So you've transitioned to caring for seniors in your current role, and
Mhm.
you've mentioned how much you love it. And I knew you
Yeah.
would. What draws you to this work, and how does it compare to your experience at the boarding school?
Well, I always knew that one day I would end up working with geriatric patients or residents in a assisted living or a nursing home even. And for a long time, just on opposite ends of the scale, the work is familiar uh, and reminiscent of that in a boarding school because you have someone that does activities, you have someone that's the liaison between the families of these folks and the institution or the company or whomever that you happen to be working for. I always felt that I would end up working for a company or an assisted living community and doing those things, being the liaison, doing activities, loading that bus up and taking those folks somewhere, just like I did students. And
Mhm.
because it's in the same sphere, it's just on the opposite end of it, or on the other side of it. And I think once I moved and started, trying to get into this field by applying for jobs or whatever, when I would go and visit, um, there was activities, things were run well, folks were taken care of, but there was so many people that you couldn't give, and because of the physical needs, a lot of times you couldn't give um, the kind of attention to someone that I wanted to. I wanted there to be a one-on-one experience to where I could be a, a real anchor and help to families and a real help to individuals. So I I filled out applications with caregiving services. And I honestly didn't think it would go anywhere because when I sent my resume and they could see what all I had done, I was afraid that or not afraid, that's not the best word. I was concerned that they were going to say that I was qualified, and what they needed me to do wasn't anyway related to what was on that paper. And I got a call from a service that provides nurses and caregivers to families. And I a company called me, and I went in and interviewed, and they wanted to put me to work right away. So uh, someone who's now become a friend of mine uh, asked me if I would be able to take um, a client full time. He lived a good bit away from me, but she said, I think that this is going to be great. And they needed me to substitute. And so for the person who was supposed to be there. So when I went that day um, and started, I met his granddaughter his, who moved her family in with him to help take care of him. And then I was there during the day while she went to work. And he was, it was severe Alzheimer's, but, there was a lot of things that would possibly draw back being able to take someone out, you know, some other folks out, but not this gentleman. So I could take him to doctor's appointments. I could take him, fun day Fridays we had. And then, we did a lot of activities. And that's what I wanted to do. And I wanted to be a help to families. And so that's where it started. She said to me, I think you would be a great fit for this person. And she wasn't wrong. After spending 30 minutes with me, 40 minutes with me, she wasn't wrong at all. And, he brought just an amazing amount of joy and his spirit. And yes, there were sad portions, sad days, you know, but there were some really good days, um, and when you see yourself making a difference for a family and the client, that what you're doing is helpful. That's my purpose, Chris.
Mhm.
That's my purpose in life. And
Mhm.
so is I have to feel that I have a purpose because for 25 years I had a purpose, you know? And so I'm glad that I can honestly say, because the two were so close together as far as the mechanics of it, um, it it seems weird to say it was a seamless transition because it, there were, times when I thought, am I doing the right thing for this person, or, is it working? And then I would find out later that yes, this is fine. This is what's supposed to be happening. So I think too, because of the fact that I don't know if I was born a natural caregiver or if because of being around it my whole childhood, my grandmother taking care of aunts, having them move in with her, my mother closing up our house and going down to take care of her mother-in-law, for a period of time. Um, just there, I mean, there could be so many examples I could give you. So I'm not sure if it was nature or nurture. I don't really know, but it it feels right for me.
Yeah.
It feels right,
Yeah.
and the purpose is like magnified. Every day I get up, I feel that I feel my purpose.
Yeah. Living your purpose. Yeah.
That's it.
And thank you for doing that and knowing yourself well enough to move forward with that. Um,
Mhm.
okay. Speaking of family and speaking
Mhm.
of your grandmother, you were especially close to your grandmother who lived with you in her final years. And I understand that you recently lost a client that you cared deeply for as well.
Yeah.
How did those experiences shape your understanding of caregiving and the importance of family?
Well, I'll tell you. I I know I have known even before caregiving. I was taught from a very early age that family is everything. And I was taught that by my grandma. You know, um, my grandma was probably the smartest person I ever knew. She had such a good heart, and she was kind and nurturing and would do anything for anybody. And so when when I started doing this, I thought about her a lot of times and thought about, you know, wonder what grandma would do, or wonder what grandma would say to this. And I used to joke that I was channeling my inner Lucille, because that was her name, Lucille Hogan. And we would laugh. Um, the one thing about it that I knew from dealing with losing her and caring for her, then losing her. And then it just, folks aren't going to live forever. You know that. But somehow I just thought my grandma would, you know. She had a fighting spirit. She was in her 90s. And when we lost her, um, it was hard, it was difficult, but it taught me that people are going to pass away and you have to go on. I mean, my sister got got all over me, as we say, and said, Libby, grandma wouldn't want you to be this way. She would want you to pick yourself up and keep going. So when I when my client passed, um, I was able to cancel my other appointments and just be with him his final week and his family, which was a gift in and of itself because he was fine when I left on a Friday, and then I got a call on Saturday saying that the doctor says that he's that he's in his final chapter. And so I don't know if it was because I I had seen him and gradually, get to a place where I knew it wasn't going to be long. I don't know if it was the fact that I he was a friend, you know, he was a friend. I was part of the family. Um, and I thought for sure I would be able to handle it better, but it rocked me to my core. It rocked me to my core. And, um, you know, I couldn't have had a better relationship. I couldn't have felt more appreciated, which wasn't the goal, me feeling appreciated. The goal was to take care of my client and in extension, by extension, his family. Um, but anyway, he, his passing, when we were there that day and he just went to sleep and there was no suffering. I think in talking it through with the counselor and the family, his family, um, that was the only way I could come to terms with it, is because I lost a friend, they lost a relative, and he was funny. He said oh my God, the funniest things, and it was just a joy. And then to have that loss and know it was coming, you've got to be able to, you've got to have somebody waiting in the wings that you can decompress with, or that can help you talk your way through it.
Yeah. I know just from talking to you about him while he was living that
Hmm.
he meant a lot to you.
Hmm.
And I know from talking to you that he felt cared for and was appreciative of you because I know how you are when you go into action. Um, the way you helped me through when Nico lost her dad suddenly, that was you know, a tough, tough loss, as you know.
Hmm.
Um, but you have that special way of caring and nurturing without, overly, you know, like just hovering
Hmm.
over. It's like you know the person and you know what they need. And um, so I
Well,
know
a lot of
you.
times that comes because you love that person, and you just want it to be. You just want to do what you can do for the people you love.
Mhm. Yeah. All right,
Do you
we
want
have
me to
one more
turn?
question. Yes, can
Do you
you
want me
turn
to?
the light on? Because you're
Yes.
losing light. Yeah.
Okay, I know. Ooh, gosh, I didn't want you to be able to see the pores on my face. Good grief.
Well, that's good. And I know we have one more question,
Okay.
and but I wanted people to be able to see you, and I know we're losing light.
Yeah.
Um, so having worked in both education and elder care, you have
Mhm.
a wealth of experience in service. What advice would you give to anyone working in education or any service industry about how to best support and care for the people that they serve?
Mm. I will tell you, it's going to sound uh, cliche, or it's going to sound too simple to be it. But I'll tell you, the one thing that works either place, either industry, is be an active listener. You know, start every day with uh, clean your ears out, turn your volume up so you can hear what's being said to you. Because sometimes, especially with children or young people, um, you have to be able to um, connect with them, and sometimes doing so is just as simple as listening, listening to what they're saying, and then watch and notice, notice their affect, notice um, if there's not that glimmer in their eye. Because sometimes it might just not be because there's a math test on the horizon. There could be that there's something really going on. And that's definitely true as a caregiver. You have to listen to the family. You have to work in partnership with uh, the uh, family of the clients. You also have to work in partnership with the parents of the children. And in both those areas, you need to be, or about, I shouldn't say that. I have always felt the need to be an advocate for both, for the students, while holding the line, which is not always easy, holding the line with the student itself, themselves rather, and then just be your authentic self and try to be open to whatever that day brings.
Thank you.
And know that the returns on work in both those areas are going to be far greater than anything you could imagine.
I so appreciate you, Libby. I know that the way that the universe operates is that anyone who needs to hear or see this interview, they will. And so I am grateful that you agreed to do this and that we could make this happen. I'm so honored to call you my friend and proud of just who you are. And I
Oh.
appreciate you.
Well, I love you, Chris, and I'm just glad to have the opportunity to sit down and have this conversation. I appreciate it. I love you to infinity and beyond.
Yes, thank you. Ditto.
I
Okay, so for the listeners out there, love and light to you, and we'll see you on the next Christina's Corner podcast. Have a good night, everybody.